My name is Ashley, and this is Let's Talk Dispatch.
I do. If you're gonna do it really well.
And I believe the world needs more dispatchers.
Around in the mud, blood, and
plus
beer.
years that I'm not working 4th of July. 4th of July.
Hey, community policing, right? What about community dispatch?
So on this show, with the help of my guests, we will educate, empower, and support the heroes behind the headset.
Right.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another episode here on Let's Talk Dispatch with me, Ashley, the Raspy Dispatcher. If you've been listening, you know that we just hit our 1-year anniversary for Let's Talk Dispatch. And I just wanted to reiterate again that it is amazing and awesome how much fun this past year has been, getting to know all you folks, having so many different people come onto the show, so many different people reach out who are listening. Even when I got to go to Neenah this past year, I had folks telling me they were listening to the podcast as they drove up to Neenah. So just so many good connections and good information getting put out there through all these different types of platforms that folks are putting together for 911 dispatchers. And Let's Talk Dispatch is really honored to be a part of those resources that folks are reaching out to. So my guest today has done all the things, from working in companies in the private sector to being a director of a comm center currently, and has been doing so for the last 18 years, or as they described in dispatcher years, 180 years. So we're going to talk about all the things. So without delay, my guest, Roxy VanGundy. Hi, Roxy.
Hi. Happy year. That's
Woo,
a big deal. That's
oh my
cute.
gosh. It really... You don't realize it. Like, I was looking at my calendar and I was like, oh, it's been a year.
I mean, I feel like we've been saying, and the world needs more dispatchers for a very long time.
Right.
So
Like,
you.
it really has been so much fun. And I get to meet so many people. I mean, we got to meet in person finally at Neenah. But typically I meet a lot of folks virtually before I ever get to meet them in person.
Yeah,
So it's really fun avenue that I've get to be a part of.
It's pretty awesome. It's a big deal, girl. You should be proud of it.
Thank you. So for those who don't know you, tell us a little bit about yourself and how you ended up in this crazy world of dispatch.
Ooh. So my name is Roxy Van Gundy. I currently direct the center that I started in, which is pretty cool. We live in a little town in Northeast Kansas. I am from an even smaller town in the middle of Kansas. About 4-5 years into my dispatch journey, my husband and I were like, hey, let's move to Alaska. It might be fun. And so we sold all of our belongings and we drove 4,000 miles north and we landed in Alaska. We had jobs in the private sector that fell through. And so we ended up being homeless in Alaska for about a month.
Yikes.
And I found my home for 911 at the Alaska State Troopers, and I worked there for about 4.5 years. And then I came back home. So I've been here ever since and just trudging along. In 2018, I took over as director after we had some real struggles with our previous director. So a lot of rebuilding that's happened, a lot of change has happened, but super proud of my folks. I have really great people.
Yeah. So, I mean, talk about a life change, right? Like you go with this plan and it falls through. I mean, I feel like that's the definition of dispatch in general. You think one thing's going to happen and you end up pivoting. What was that like? Finding a job in those type of circumstances, and B, I feel like a lot of folks, you're applying to the city that you're familiar with, that you live in, or that you have been living in. But I feel like you ended up in this foreign place for you. And then you were like having to learn geography in the sense of a dispatcher. Like, what was that process like for you?
So I came into that a little bit naive. I mean, I thought, Ashley, I knew how to be a dispatcher. I learned how to be a dispatcher. This should be a piece of cake, right? I mean, obviously the geography would be different. The people would be different. It's completely different. It's totally a different type of dispatch. So I was really thrown into something that I was not at all used to, with a lot of different cultures that we serve in Northern Alaska. There's loads of indigenous cultures there.
Mm.
And some of the dispatching that you had to do to serve those cultures were a little bit different. We also did dispatching for the animal cops. So we had a whole set of troopers that just did animal issues. They didn't deal with anything but that. And so you had to learn about moose and the mating seasons for sheep and all sorts of different stuff. So
could you imagine being handed a pamphlet that's like, here are the mating seasons for I would have been
right.
like, what job is this?
More than once, I had to say, like, hey, I'm from Kansas. I know about cows. Help me understand what that means. I don't know how long sheep horns are supposed to be. Like, I don't know that. So yeah, people are good about educating you. That's for sure.
That's wild. That's it always, especially with like, because I dispatch in the city, I'm a city kid, and I spent some time in the Midwest in Iowa for school, but like when I hear like Alaska and these places that are so rural, I can't say that word right now, obviously. And they have like wildlife, like real like polar bears and stuff. Like I don't know what's out in Alaska, but like these things, or even just bears in general, like these calls that you just, if someone called me at work and like there's a bear on downtown Main Street, I would have been like, what?
Well,
what do we do?
You could really tell. We lived between two military bases, so you could tell when they cycled in new soldiers because we get a lot more calls about people saying, oh my God, there's a moose in my yard. What do I do? You live on their property.
Yeah, you let that moose be.
Yeah, they just leave them alone. So yeah.
Oh my gosh. Do you remember any of your first calls or early calls for service?
Well, when I first started here, it was a lot busier here. We had way more crime. I don't know what has happened. Now we're just a sleepy little town, but I had some pretty big calls here, but I had some of my biggest and toughest calls in Alaska. Not only are Alaskans the salt of the earth and the kindest people, they do crime on Olympic levels. So when things happen, they happen big.
Yeah.
So, I've had a explosion of a gas station that we won some awards for doing. We've had a couple people that we've found that were missing. In Alaska, there's not troopers that can always respond to things. So if they don't have a trooper that can respond to the area, a lot of times it's on the dispatcher to figure out. So, it's pretty cool to be able to say, hey, I located a guy who got lost on his way from a hunting trip, and be able to own a little bit more of the successful outcome than maybe another dispatcher would be able to do. So.
And that is something that I'm always weary of when it's like the folks who are working in these areas where like where the response time is so large just because of the area, or even for me as a dispatch side, like the cover call, like your guy, like where I work now, like the cover might be with traffic maybe 10 minutes out on a bad day, but there are some folks that are out there in the cuts who are waiting 20 minutes for cover. And I couldn't imagine having to wait that long on this side of the mic while someone's in this like really intense situation and possibly life-threatening situation.
Maybe like 20% of my service area maybe had a road that you could drive to said place, but the rest of it was all by plane. So like if our if our planes had used up all of the service time, or there wasn't enough pilots, or we didn't have a plane we could use because they were broken, it was on us to figure out. So, I mean, maybe you can get a trooper to call somebody and say, hey, here's what we'll do. But a lot of times we had to figure out how to resolve it. And even if it was on the road system, it could be a 2-hour response time from where the trooper lived to where the problem is. So you're on the phone that whole 2 hours. We once had a call of a lady who had overdosed in the car on the side of a highway. And I was calling her she kept hanging up, and I probably called her 60 times because it was
Wow.
a 2-hour, drive to get to where she was from where the trooper lived. So,
Yeah.
it definitely takes a lot of skill to question people and keep them on the line for that amount of time, and really keep working with very limited technology. They don't have a lot of technology now, but they have way more than we did when I worked there. So,
Yeah. Yeah.
it's definitely a different scenario and a new way to dispatch for sure.
And it's one of the reasons why I really do love talking to people who've had all these different range of experiences in dispatch, because of just how different each agency, each center, each state, each city, you know, did I lose you? Oh no. This makes sense. This has been my life lately. Roxy, come back.
You right off. I don't know where you went.
Are you back?
I'm back. Sorry. I don't know what happened.
Hello.
Are you there? Hi.
Yes.
I don't know what happened. You just went
It
blank.
just same. You just it looked like you got booted out. And I was like, you know what? This has been my day. This is my life. That's literally what I said. I'm like, yep, that tracks.
We are totally gonna just be fine. It'll be fine.
Everything's okay. Everything's okay. Oh man. For the folks who me and Roxy, we've been struggling trying to get this on the books, boy. Let me tell you.
It's totally fine. We're okay.
But we got this. We're here now. We're making it work. Oh man. But what I was saying was that everyone just does this job so differently. I lateraled from one agency to another. And even in that small movement, seeing how different this agency does it compared to my old agency. And then you think about, folks who are out there worried about if their plane's flyable. Like, I would never imagine that to be a job or a thing that a dispatcher would have to worry about just because of my dispatch experience. It's not something that I have dealt with, but it's something that dispatchers out there do deal with. And it's one of those reasons why it's like, yeah, first responders, baby, like we're doing it all.
Yeah, definitely. And there's still people, and I didn't realize this until I worked in an area that had this issue, but there's still people in the United States in 2023 that don't have access to 911. 911 is not something that they can dial where they live. So, that was something that was pretty prevalent in my service area in Alaska is, people could maybe get out on a cell phone, or maybe they knew somebody who had a satellite phone, but they would have to radio to those people out into the community and say, hey, I need help. Joe is freaking out at my house and I need him out of here. They don't have any way to the outside world except through a radio. So yeah, it's
so
different.
Intense. Yeah, just a whole different way of living, a whole different way of life, a whole different way of dispatching.
Yeah, for sure.
It's wild. With all that, being said, what do you think is the most significant change that you have seen in dispatch over these 18 years?
Ooh, I think in G911, we've always been really blessed here to be kind of ahead of technology in Kansas. But we were never to this degree before I left for Alaska. And then in Alaska, we had nothing. We had no NG911.
Yeah.
The only way you knew somebody was calling from outside of the city was that it rang like it had a slightly different ringtone. That was it. There was no mapping. There was no text. There was no CAD. There was no nothing. So when I came back to Kansas is actually one of the few states that started doing statewide NG911 deployments. And so while we're not ahead of much in this world, we're definitely ahead of the curve in regards to 911 technology. And, to see our folks taking videos and doing texts and doing translation and all of that, that's far and away more than I ever could have imagined when I first started.
Yeah. And I mean, and I feel it's one of those things that we don't think about until it's something that affects us.
No.
If I'm someone who's, like able to communicate, I speak the predominant language, I, have no other things that are preventing me from being able to communicate, I don't consider how am I going to communicate when I need to dial for help?
Exactly.
because, I'm the standard air quotes, but for folks who are out there who are, speaking other languages or, are in hard of hearing communities and things of that nature, those things are on the forefront of their mind
Right.
compared to someone like me who isn't thinking about that, you know?
Exactly. Exactly. We really don't always do a great job in public safety of making 911 equitable,
Mhm.
for everyone. And so, you can have NG 911 and you can have all of these tools, but how are you going out into your community and marketing that kind of
Mhm.
stuff?
Mhm.
For me, I want to make sure that my citizens, not just my English speaking, but my Spanish speaking and those few hearing impaired folks that I have
Mhm.
know exactly what they can get from us all the
Mhm.
time. So,
Mhm.
we try really hard when we post up information and, try to do public education over social media about the tools that we have in NG 911. We try
Mhm.
to make those in both languages so everybody has an equal playing field when they need help.
Mhm. Totally true. I mean, it's especially like the text to 911 aspect that I've seen personally
Yeah.
develop over my 5 years in dispatching and being able to have it automatically translate anything that I'm typing. I mean, I could just type free fall whatever the heck I wanna type and then be like, "But say that in Spanish." And then
Yes.
it
Yeah.
does it, and it's such a useful tool.
Yeah. I think, especially when you live in areas like I'm sure you have such a diverse population. And
Mhm.
here we have, a lot of people who are traveling down our major highways that
Mhm.
speak different languages. It's just important that everybody knows that we're trying our best to make it easy for everyone because we want to help anybody who needs our help. So,
Totally true. Totally,
yeah.
totally true. Um, so let's talk about, leadership in our centers
Yeah.
and what that looks like. How important do you feel strong leadership in our centers is, and what does it look like for folks?
Ooh, Ashley, I'm going to get up on the soapbox.
Hold on, let me help you.
Um,
Give you a hand.
I think that there are some hard conversations that still need to be had about leadership in our space. We have some leaders out there that are doing it really well. We have some leaders out there who are pretending like they're doing it really well, and then they come back to their centers and they're not. We have
Mhm,
some leaders who, are just a dumpster fire. And we
mhm,
have people who are sworn who are in charge of a 911 center, and they just don't have the time or capacity to be leaders in the center.
mhm. Yeah.
You know, I think that we also need to really keep having the conversation that a leader doesn't mean you have a title. Anybody
Mm,
can be a leader. And, some of these centers that have sworn um, administrators, they're going to have to be the leader within their center.
mhm,
You cannot do this job and just come in and check in and do the work and leave. You
mhm,
have to be a leader in your field. And, being a leader is how we're going to turn the ship around. The
mhm,
toxic culture, the low staffing numbers, we have to have more people investing in the fact that they're a leader too.
mhm,
And that's a conscious choice that people are going to have to make every single day. You
mhm,
know, I was not always the greatest dispatcher and I was not always the nicest person. And you have to make the conscious choice to be different
mhm,
and, to choose to be the leader that your center needs. And, I think real talk needs to continue to be had and some hard conversations need to still be had because I don't think enough people are stepping up to the plate.
It's so true, and I think a lot of times, we as people, not only we as dispatchers, but we can get into a cycle of, um, pointing fingers, blaming,
Yeah,
it's so and so's fault, they need to do better, and really, we do have to really take ownership of the environment we're creating with the things we can control.
right.
You know, I'm not going to be able to change everything in my department from the top down, but I can at least make my shift for my 12 hours,
The best
an
it can be.
enjoyable one.
Yeah, the best it can be. And,
Mhm.
there's some centers that don't have money or,
Mhm.
ways to invest in folks. And maybe,
Mhm.
it just takes one person to want to be better and maybe create training for other people or,
Mhm.
try to, help the younger ones and mentor the younger ones to bring them up to what you know as a veteran. There's just so
Yeah.
many different ways to be a leader. And I think that we just don't have enough people that are trying to be one.
Yeah. No, it really is true because like I learned something new probably every shift.
Yeah.
That every shift, if I sit with a new partner, if I mean like I learned something new, whether it's about my department and how we do things, or just a way to ask a question, listening to someone else take a call, hearing them ask something. I'm like, oh, boop, I'm just going to take that and ask it that way next time.
Yeah.
There's so many things we can learn, once we get through training, like we're not done, like we're
No.
not then that dispatcher perfect. We're done. No more molding needs to be had. We are always learning and always becoming better dispatchers.
And we don't have to be the gatekeepers of all the knowledge.
Ain't
Like,
that right?
it's
I don't
okay.
even lock my door, you know what I mean? Like, come
Right.
on in.
Like, you don't have to gatekeep all of that knowledge, just because you know how to do something really great. Like, you're the person that everybody knows everything about warrants, or everything about, how to run things in NCIC. Great, you're still that person. But what
Mhm.
does it hurt for other people to be just as smart as you are? What does that
Yeah.
hurt? That just makes everybody better. So,
Exactly. Like let's really promote like being the person who teaches everybody how to do things. Like,
yeah.
oh, you want to learn warrants? Like go to Roxy. Like she'll hook you up
And I
rather
think that's the
than
cornerstone of being a leader, is being
Mhm.
open to wanting to do that.
Totally true. Well, I mean, I think that leads us into the question of the century, which is why should people be nice to one another?
Oh my goodness. You should be nice to each other because it's the right thing to do, Ashley. Like,
Mhm,
it's
mhm,
like we said earlier, it's 2023. I It's the right thing to do. We're not
mhm,
in high school anymore. We're grown adults. You know, if we're ever going to get better and make this profession better, it starts with being nice to each other.
mhm,
Nobody these days is taking a job where they're treated like crap and they're talked to like crap and they're,
mhm,
left to just figure it out. People don't want to deal with that post COVID.
mhm.
They're
Yeah,
just done.
yeah, they're
And
over it for
so
sure.
don't tell me in one breath that you can't understand why everybody is leaving, and then in the other breath you're talking shit about your coworker and how
Yeah.
terrible she is and
Mhm.
how she just wants to get in with the police officers. Like, be nice. Like, it's be nice. It's not your
Mhm,
story to tell. And
mhm,
I say all the time, if we want to be viewed as professionals, we need to start acting like professionals. And
mhm,
sometimes that doesn't happen. And in our centers, I think professionalism is the only thing that's served here. We don't deal in other things. So, if you want to be a professional first responder and you want people to treat you like that, then you need to act like it.
yeah.
So,
It's always so funny, like, it's so easier said than done sometimes you see
sure.
in these dinners, it's like
Oh, goodness.
my
Sure.
yeah.
And I mean, I tell people all the time, I wasn't a really nice coworker. I wasn't a
Mhm,
great trainer starting out. I treat people like total crap. And it was a choice. It was a
mhm,
choice to be better. And when I decided that I didn't want to be mad all the time and I didn't want to hate my job all the time, my life got exponentially better. Like,
mhm,
and do I want to say a snide thing every now and again? Sure. Like,
mhm.
I feel it coming on my lips, but you gotta pull it back. We're all adults and we gotta start
Mhm,
treating each other kindly and with
mhm,
respect. And everybody's doing a hard job. We're all doing a
mhm,
hard job and we're all going through things at home that are hard. And
mhm.
it just, I hate, hate, hate. There's nothing that I hate more than to go on social media and watch people in those dispatch groups
Ooh,
tear,
man, they get wild out there.
tear up their vehicles. Like, what are you doing to help that? What are you doing?
Mhm,
So,
mhm. And
whew,
so as someone who was a recovering individual who was, in that center doing those things, what do you think helped you kinda make that pivot and make that shift? Is there anything that advice you can give to someone who's kinda in the Grinch stage of their journey and need to start giving the presents back to the town, you know?
I think that for me, in my life, I kind of got a wake up call that was pretty harsh.
Mm,
Two of my friends were murdered. And, they were the type of people who used their job as a way to lift each other up. They were the hand up guys, like they would lift up their coworkers, they would lift up people they arrested, they would tell people how much better they could be if they just, chose differently. They used their job as a way to serve. And I missed that point, right? And so for me, the choice I made happened when they died, because I couldn't let their memory and the things that they were doing in public safety, I couldn't let that stop, So I think that if you're at a point where you feel like you're not happy in the job that you do, I think some self-reflection really needs to happen, because don't be like me and wait until people that you love are gone. Don't be like me and wait until you have to choose to be better, or else you choose to go down the drain. Take that step now and figure out, is that comment really something I need to say? Is that person really as terrible as I make her out to be? What have I done to lift up Molly and help her be the kind of dispatcher and partner I wish she would be? Just don't wait until it's a point where you're so sad and you're so upset that you have to figure out what you're going to do, or you end up leaving the profession. Because that's kind of where I was, is either I need to go this way or I just need to be done. Because it's all over for me in the current way that I'm going. So I have to do something different.
Yeah. Well, hey, thank you for being so vulnerable. One of the things that I said on my anniversary episode is that, essentially half the time I'm talking to strangers, right? I'm asking strangers to come on here and tell me their journey. And a lot of times we do hit these topics that, pull at our heartstrings, and, strangers are being vulnerable with me. They're being vulnerable with our listeners, and it's tough. And I really do appreciate you being willing to share that part of your story and your journey. And, I think when we do share those things, it really does hit home for folks who are listening, who may be at that point where they do need to make that pivot. And, I know it's hard to tell our truths. And I do really appreciate you being willing to do that with me.
Well, and I think, Ashley, telling it is never easy. Like here it's been, 9 years now, and it still chokes me up. But like that was my moment right there. Was either I let them die, their memories, their life, their mission, all of that goes away, or I carry it on. So not only am I choosing to serve the way they served, but I'm also using their life and their examples is how I lead my troops and how we lead our center. And, that cornerstone starts when people are in training here, and we talk about their story and why I used to not be very nice, and how I turned that corner, and how, this job is more than just a job. It's real life and real families, and you grow really close with these people. And so, for me, talking about them and telling their story and telling how they impacted my life, it sews up all of those little holes in my heart. So, as hard as it is to talk to people, real talk about how I had to change, it definitely helps me in the long run. So,
and it helps us, it helps all of us to hear these stories. So again, I really do appreciate it. And I think the longer you're in this career, the more likely you are to have calls or colleagues have situations where they might not make it home. At the end of it, I had one pretty early in my career. Hope to never have that happen again. But it is a reality of this job, and especially when you're working in more close quarters with officers or, whoever you're dispatching, really. but especially at agencies where you actually really get to know these people, their kids, their partners, I mean, it is definitely one of those things in the job that you need to consider, right? When we're talking about the things to think about, you know, there is risk and there is danger here, and you do open yourself to traumas that not the average person is exposed to.
For sure, for sure. But I think that that's, while that can make it so heartbreaking, it's also what makes it so great. Right? Because we have such a different perspective on what these men and women do every single day and how devoted so many of them are to public safety and keeping our communities safe. You know, so while it is really, really difficult and sad stuff happens to everybody across the nation, it's so great to work in a profession where we not only impact the lives of our citizens, but we also are able to impact the lives of our first responders that work alongside us. So that I feel is a privilege and something that I'm really proud to do.
Yeah, it really is. And, you know, I think you don't really realize it when you're just starting to get into it, right?
No.
You're like, whatever, like I got this job that paid me decent, you know, I got days off, I got holidays, you know, all the benefits and whatnot. And then you're in it and you're just like, wow, like this is, you know, single line. This like really is, you know, a community, you know, where of folks who get it and, you know, folks who you get a different angle into law enforcement for me or fire or EMS, whatever it is that you're dispatching. You know, I always thought I was going to be in law enforcement. Never did I think I was going to be a dispatcher. Like, what is that? What is that even? You know, that's a job. So just the different lens it gives folks that are in this line of work, it's really eye-opening.
It's very, very cool. We get to do a really cool job, and I wish more people thought of it that way.
Yeah, no, totally. And that's why the world needs more dispatchers, everybody.
Right. And I mean, like I say sometimes, we don't have to do this. We get to do it. And that's a really, really big thing to remember is, you know, you don't have to keep doing this. You get to, and you get the opportunity to be a part of so many amazing things, like for all of the hardships that happen and the overtime and all of the negatives, there are so many other positives I think outweigh that hugely. So, you know, I tried to have a go in the civilian world, and I'm just not built for that. I need to be on this side. So
she's like, I need caffeine, no sleep, 12-hour shifts.
I need to know everybody's business.
What you mean? I hear a helicopter and I don't know what's going on. Like what?
I couldn't do it.
It's so funny. But you know, hey, if you're someone who's like, man, I think I'm at the end of my journey. I want to pivot to the private sector, and like, the world needs more dispatchers, but we need happy dispatchers. We need folks who are like wanting to still do this job, you know, bring that positive environment. And if that's not you, that's okay.
Yeah, that's totally okay. And you can always come back, right?
Like, yeah, we're always hiring.
Right. Like everybody said when I left Kansas, like, oh my God, what are you going to do if it doesn't work out in Alaska? Well, I mean, Kansas doesn't like close the gates when you leave. I mean, it's the same thing for dispatch. We don't just shut and lock the door. You can always come back, you know. There's always going to be a place at our table for you. So come on back.
Exactly. Well, what advice would you give someone who is considering a career as a dispatcher?
Ask a lot of questions. I came into this really, really, really naive. And ask a lot of questions on the front end. You know, if you come into an interview, I love people who ask all sorts of questions. Like, no question is a dumb question because nobody really knows what we do out in the world. So just ask a lot of questions. Have a really good understanding of what the culture is where you're going. You know, have a good understanding of, you know, how things work. Ask to do a sit-along. Any dispatch center who will not let you do a sit-along, that's a red flag. So, you know, ask to see how the center works and get a feel for things before you really commit, you know, and just have a really good understanding of what you're walking into.
So true. I think a lot of the time we're like, we need the job. We're trying to get the job. We,
Yeah,
we're like, please take me. But
I'm good.
yeah, but I tell people all the time on like my YouTube channel and with like my resources or whatever, like you are just as important in this process as
Yeah,
like your wants, your needs, what you're interested in is just as important as an agency looking to you to see if you're a good fit.
exactly.
Ask so many questions. Ask them how many times they're mandating their folks. Like, ask them how much overtime is on the board. Like
Yeah,
you want to know those things because if you're at a place in your life where you want to work, you
right.
know, that hearing that there's overtime is going to be amazing for you. But if you're someone who's like, I got a family, I got kids, I just want to do my job and go home. I don't want to get mandated all the time, but I understand it's part of the job. You're
Yeah,
gonna want to know that about that agency going in because once you're in, it's not one of those jobs where it's like you sneak in the back door, then you're like, oh, but here's my real availability. Like that's not
yeah.
that's not how this job works.
No.
We won't bend for you because it's just we're a 24/7 system.
Yeah. And
So
and what we do we may not be the right center for you. That doesn't mean
mhm,
there isn't a right center for you.
mhm.
So keep looking. If you don't feel like there's, a good fit happening and you don't see yourself with that center, then that's okay. Keep looking for the center that works for you and you can feel like you could plug into really easily.
Mhm.
There's all sorts of centers, all shapes and sizes that need help. And
Yeah.
just keep looking for the right one.
Mhm.
And if
It's
you're unhappy, you don't have to stay there. There's
please.
other centers that you might really thrive in. You just have
Mhm.
to have the courage to jump. So,
Yeah. Yeah, by all means, take the leap. There's always a center looking for, good
yeah,
folks, good people. And if you do, excuse me, make the change, definitely make sure that you're in a place where you're bringing the good energy into your new position and you're
yeah,
starting anew and you're, you know, in that place where you want to learn, be better, and bring good energy to a shift. Because there's nothing worse than like a bad shift, like 12 hours of silence or
yeah, no way.
like, no, thank you. Oh man. Well, Roxy, it's been amazing. I
Yes,
really truly appreciate all of our back and forth to get this on the books.
you did it.
But we did it, came through strong. And I'm sure I'll be seeing you in person at some of these conferences and events. Do you have any coming up that you're going to be speaking
Oh
at
my
or attending
goodness.
or
They're keeping me busy this year. I am headed to Missouri next
Ooh,
week, and then
okay.
I will be headed to the Kansas conference
Awesome.
on the 17th, and then Oklahoma in October. Um, Virtual Academy is doing an online conference on the 13th of September that I'm going to be a part of.
Very
And
cool.
then Ready 23 with Rapid SOS is happening November 1st. So, whew, busy stuff,
Awesome.
busy stuff.
Awesome.
Yeah,
I'll find all those links and I'll put them in the show notes
sure.
as well to get folks out there involved. It's another thing that I really love about the dispatch community. And I don't think enough dispatchers realize how much free resources are out there, free virtual conferences,
Yeah.
speakings, like there's so much out there now.
And so many people who want to help you, right? Actually,
Mhm.
like what I love about going to these conferences in person is meeting people I don't know, and connecting with them, but also online conferences. If I'm putting my information up for you, I want you to reach out to me.
Yeah.
Know you're not alone and know that I'm here for you. And even if you just need a hype girl, a cheerleader, somebody to vent to, holler. I'm here for you. You're not alone. So,
Awesome. Again, Roxy, thank you so much.
yeah,
And I will be right back with you.
thank you.
All right, everybody. That was another amazing episode here on the Raspy Dispatcher. Let's talk dispatch. Um, Man, just so many great gems, so many great things. But at the end of the day, the job's already hard enough, right? And if you're having a moment, if you're having a time where you're just feeling real burnt out and just kind of feeling really like you're not putting that good energy out there, definitely recognize that and seek some resources, seek some services, peer support, your family, your friends, your coworkers. We get it. We've been there. We can't be 100% all the time, but we want to be responsible for our energy and really help each other be the best dispatchers we can be. Until next time, everybody, stay raspy. Thanks for tuning in to another episode of Let's Talk Dispatch, a Raspy Dispatcher production. If you liked the podcast, don't forget to hit that subscribe button, leave a 5-star review, and of course, tell a friend. If you want to be a guest, head to theraspydispatcher.com and check out our additional resources. Until next time, stay raspy, everybody.